Our story begins in the year 2020, as Solji reminisces about her high school days in 2006 when she was 17. Back then, the most important thing to her was Cha Hae-on, her classmate, neighbor, and the boy she was in love with. And she wasn't shy about it. On the contrary, whenever she had the chance, she made it clear that she loved him and wanted to spend time with him. For his part, Cha Hae-on simply ignored her, hoping she would leave him alone. One day at school, Solji forgets to do her math homework and tries to copy from her good friend, Jin Hae-won, but she is discovered. As a consequence, she is taken to the teacher's lounge where, by a stroke of bad luck, Cha Hae-on walks in and overhears the entire conversation. Her situation worsens when she sees her crush explaining math to a classmate named Hui-ji, who is much more attractive than her. Determined not to lose the love of her life, our young protagonist then searches for a way to make him fall for her. To do this, she begins to write a letter. Not just any letter, but the greatest love letter in history. However, while she is running some errands, a group of boys begins to bother her, leading to a huge fight. It is here we meet two more characters, Ha-jong, a tough girl who isn't afraid to get her hands dirty to help others, and Dae-sung, a natural-born swimmer who has never had friends because he is always training. These two, along with Cha Hae-on, rescue Solji and Jin Hae-won, who was also there. This fight sparks a new friendship among the group of classmates, and they decide to go to a karaoke bar together, although the party pooper Cha Hae-on only goes to study. Here we realize that Dae-sung is in love with Solji. As they leave the karaoke, he offers to take her home on his bicycle because some boys had stolen hers. He also offers to take her to school for the next few days, which she reluctantly accepts. At school, Cha Hae-on is reminded of his father, who sadly passed away recently. Solji tries to cheer him up, but he just observes her and then gives her his bicycle, a gesture that touches her soul. A few days later, the group, except for our leading man, attends one of Dae-sung's swimming competitions. He manages to win the gold medal, which for some reason doesn't please his coach, who also happens to be his father, at all. So, what would make the man happy, being given the key to the city, a diamond? I don't get it. Anyway, upon returning home, Solji decides to take medicine to Cha Hae-on, who has been having a hard time and had to prepare for his father's funeral alone, as his mother is working abroad. The next day, Cha Hae-on offers to take Solji to school, an offer she gladly accepts. In class, the young woman runs for class president, despite being the opposite of an ideal student. Therefore, our protagonist, more focused than ever, prepares a speech with the help of Dae-sung, who does nothing but make fun of her. Hui-ji's friend has the same attitude, not hesitating to mock her in front of Cha Hae-on. He, besides not defending her, votes for Hui-ji, claiming that Solji doesn't have the character to be president. Feeling betrayed, our young woman hits him on the leg and tries to avoid him as much as possible. Unfortunately, Hui-ji, who becomes the class president, tasks our protagonist with collecting money for t-shirts. What could possibly go wrong? Cha Hae-on hands over the money with an annoyed expression and then begins talking with Hui-ji. Later, our protagonist realizes she left the envelope with the money in her notebook, which is in the teacher's lounge. Desperate, she tries to find a way to get it back, but nothing works. The end of the class arrives, and the teacher asks Solji for the money. The young woman is trying to make an excuse when suddenly Cha Hae-on stands up and hands the envelope to the teacher, a gesture that touches Solji's heart. After this moment, which our cheerful girl interprets as a sign of love, Solji decides to buy him a gift for his upcoming birthday. There's just one problem. She doesn't have enough money, but conveniently for the plot, the school has organized a relay race competition where the prize is 150,000 won. Solji, of course, signs up along with Ha-jong and a classmate named Mi-na-yo. Our protagonist begins to train with the help of Dae-sung, who isn't as fast compared to other runners. Meanwhile, Ha-jong is practicing for a sack race when a classmate named Se-ha-young accidentally knocks her over, causing her to injure her ankle. Jin Hae-won, Sol-ji, and Dae-sung help her up and take her to the nurse's office, where they learn that the injury is not serious, but she will have to use crutches for a few days. Because of this major setback, Sol-ji pushes herself even harder in her track practice. Only this time, the person helping her is none other than Cha Hae-on. The day of the competition arrives, and Sol-ji's class wins the track meet, taking home the prize money. A few days later, the class organizes for the theatre festival competition, a perfect opportunity for Sol-ji to be close to Cha Hae-on. But there will be two groups, our girls and Hui-ji's. As expected, Hui-ji invites Cha Hae-on to her group to perform Romeo and Juliet. Seeing this, Sol-ji tries to convince him to join her team, but unfortunately he doesn't respond. And in the end, the teacher assigns him to Hui-ji's team. What terrible luck! Despite this awful failure, Sol-ji gets to work with Dae-sung, who invites her to his house and tells her that he lives with his father and his grandmother, who sadly suffers from Alzheimer's. When the day of the performance arrives, Sol-ji gives a song to Mina and Yo for their play. However, one of them mistakenly plays it during Cha Hae-on and Hui-ji's performance. To make matters even worse, the track is a recording of Sol-ji complaining about Hui-ji. Embarrassed, the young woman hides in the dressing room with Dae-sung when suddenly Cha Hae-on approaches. In a slightly annoyed tone, he tells her she's a disaster before leaving. That must have hurt. Who needs enemies when you have friends who play your private audio recordings over a loudspeaker in public? Monday arrives, and with it, Sol-ji returns to school where several of her classmates tease her for a change. Like a true gentleman, Dae-sung defends her, but he can't be by her side all the time as he also has to train. For his part, Cha Hae-on seems to feel some regret for what he said. He waits for Sol-ji after school, but she doesn't show up. When he gets home, he finds the surprise that his mother and younger brother have returned for his birthday. Despite this, our focus is on Sol-ji, who begins to consider transferring schools after so much chaos. The next morning, intending to make her feel a little better, Dae-sung secretly takes her to the swimming pool, which he has filled with beach balls and floats. How sweet! Girl, take the hint. However, they are both caught by Dae-sung's father, who punishes him severely that same night. The following day, Sol-ji and her parents go to the school to talk to the teacher about the transfer, when suddenly Cha Hae-on enters the room with the excuse that he came to get some books. He also takes the opportunity to be alone with Sol-ji and ask her not to leave. Honestly, who can figure these guys out? After this gesture, Sol-ji's faith and love for Cha Hae-on are restored, and she saves him a seat in science class. A new year begins, which means new adventures. Later, during a break, Jin Hae-won shows his friends a poster announcing auditions for a reality show called Korea Sings. Our Sol-ji wants to participate, but to do so, she must first pass the preliminary rounds. At home, our protagonist's parents have a big argument and leave the next day, leaving their poor daughter alone. Cha Hae-on notices this and goes out to comfort her, letting her cry on his shoulder. Luckily, her parents return the next day, happy and more in love than ever. Changing the subject, the group of friends decides to spend the night together, watching for shooting stars. Afterward, they play the classic game of Truth or Dare, where each person writes a secret on a piece of paper. They place them on a table and exchange them randomly. An excited Sol-ji writes her secret and picks a piece of paper from the table. When she opens it, she is surprised to find a sentence that reads, "I like Shin Sol-ji." A few days later, our girl wants to invite Cha Hae-on to a Manchester United game, so she starts working at home, hoping her parents will give her the money to buy the tickets. Meanwhile, Dae-sung participates in an important swimming competition. After placing second on a previous occasion, he feels immense pressure, but luckily, Sol-ji is in the audience cheering for him. This fills him with determination, and he ends up winning the competition. After winning the gold medal, Dae-sung declares to the media that he owes his victory to her, looking at her with great tenderness. The interviewers ask if she is his girlfriend, and the rumor of their relationship quickly spreads throughout the school, which, you guessed it, annoys Cha Hae-on a little. When the weekend arrives, Solji looks for a part-time job to buy the tickets, and during her search, she comes across a hamburger restaurant where she finds Dae-sung working. She takes the opportunity to ask him what he wrote during the Truth or Dare game. Startled, he lies, telling her he wrote that he loved hamburgers. This makes Solji happy, as it would mean by default that Cha Hae-on was the one who wrote "I like Shin Solji," although it seems that's not the case. Or maybe it is. Deeply in love, excited and with money in her pockets, Solji gives Cha Hae-on a ticket to go to the Manchester United game. However, he not only rejects the invitation, but also buys the ticket from her. It turns out that day is also Solji's birthday, and Cha Hae-on rejected the ticket to take her to the Dream concert, a concert featuring all her favourite artists. However, when he gets to the concert, he calls Solji and finds out she is outside the football stadium, so he heads over there. Just as they are about to enter, they discover that the game tickets are fake, so they decide to sit outside. It's there that she asks him what he wrote during the Truth or Dare game. He shows her that he picked his own note, which said, "I don't want to play this game." Oh, the poor girl can't catch a break, taking one hit after another. Now that she knows Cha Hae-on didn't write that he liked her, it's clear who did, Dae-sung. Because of this, she tries to keep her distance from him as much as possible the next day. Later, she tells Ha-jong everything, who advises her to give Dae-sung a chance because he's an incredible guy. Solji doesn't deny it, but she's so in love with Cha Hae-on that she can't even think about another man. For that reason, she decides to confront Dae-sung. Nervously, he tells her that what he wrote that day was just a joke, and then pretends his father is calling him so he can leave without raising suspicion. Changing the subject, an important debate is approaching at school, and one of Solji's classmates starts making fun of her for her poor academic performance. Cha Hae-on overhears the conversation and, for this reason, gives Solji a couple of tips so she can do well in the debate. This not only helps her pass, but also earns her praise from her teacher. Back in class, the teacher confiscates a book and an MP3 player that Dae-sung had lent to Solji. A complicated situation, no doubt. Dae-sung accepts her apology and also hands out hand warmers to the whole group so he can give one to Solji without it looking too suspicious. Seeing this, Cha Hae-on leaves the cafeteria, followed by our girl. In other news, a rumor spreads about a deadly flu affecting the students. At that moment, Solji sneezes, frightening her classmates, so she goes to the nurse's office while all the other students go home. For his part, Cha Hae-on goes into the teacher's lounge to retrieve the book that was confiscated from our protagonist. He then goes into the school's broadcasting room to read the book over the loudspeakers so that Solji can hear it. Am I the only one confused by these mixed signals? Do you like the girl or not? Later, winter is coming. No, just kidding. It's already here, and with it, Christmas. Naturally, our love-struck protagonist wants to make a scarf for Cha Hae-son, but only after seeing Huiji making one for him. For this, she asks her father for help, who then finds a love letter written by his own daughter around the house. In a panic, her mother asks Cha Hae-on if by any chance Solji has a boyfriend, to which he replies that he doesn't know. The next day, the young woman sees Huiji giving a wrapped box to Cha Hae-on, which makes her very anxious. And later, Solji sees the box inside her beloved's backpack. The day after, Solji sees Cha Hae-on wearing a new scarf. He notices her anger but doesn't know the reason for her attitude. Just then, it begins to snow, so on the way home, he wraps his scarf around Solji. However, she tells him she doesn't want to wear something Huiji gave him, to which he explains that the scarf belongs to his mother. Relieved, the young woman gives him a Christmas card and, while at it, a bracelet, since she couldn't finish making the scarf after all. After all this, 2 years have passed, and we are now in 2008. Our characters are high school seniors, and Solji fantasizes about finally confessing her love to Cha Hye-on. She goes out to buy some things with Dae-sung. Later, the class gathers for a barbecue, and during this time, Solji follows Cha Hye-on everywhere. Meanwhile, Jin Hae-won tries to win over Ha-jong, who only has eyes for the school nurse, Mr. Lee. A few minutes later, Ha-jong, Jin Hae-won, and our protagonist decorate a spot for the grand confession. However, as she approaches Cha Hye-on, Hui-ji follows him and hugs him. At that moment, Solji comes out of her hiding place and sees them. Suddenly, Dae-sung arrives and offers her his shoulder to cry on. But unfortunately for them, Cha Hye-on also sees them, surrounded by all the decorations. Dae-sung takes Solji back home where Cha Hye-on is waiting for her. She refuses to speak to him, while Dae-sung confronts him, confessing that he loves Solji and doesn't want to see her suffer. Trying to fix the problem, our leading man attempts to win her back by giving her a bag of sweets. However, she rejects it. To make matters even worse, Solji has a small argument with Hui-ji when Cha Hye-on suddenly intervenes and takes the latter's side. This makes the young woman call him a fool and walk away very angry. Anyway, in a different turn of events, Hui-ji sneaks into the teacher's lounge to look for something when the principal and a teacher catch her. She explains that it's not what it looks like, but they accuse her of trying to steal the upcoming exam anyway. Meanwhile, Dae-sung is at the hospital due to a pain in his shoulder, and there the doctor tells him he won't be able to compete for a while, which worries him greatly as he was training for the Olympics. The next day, Cha Hye-on sees Solji and Dae-sung together, which saddens him a little. Seeing him in this state, Jin Hae-won offers to help. With that, he leads Solji to the library, where she meets Cha Hye-on, who sits next to her and brushes the hair from her face. Later, Minayo tells the young woman and Ha-jong that if they find a 4-leaf clover, their romantic wishes will come true. Excited, Ha-jong finds a clover and takes it to the nurse's office for Mr. Lee. Jin Hae-won sees this, having had no idea she was in love with this guy. Because of this, upon returning to the classroom, he yells at a poor girl who had started talking about 4-leaf clovers and storms out. A week passes, and the drama at school only continues to escalate. This time, Hui-ji faints outside the bathroom. When her mother finds out, she accuses Mr. Lee of being the culprit, so he decides to resign. After this incident, Cha Hye-on tells Solji that Hui-ji suffers from depression and that he has been by her side all this time trying to help her. He also clarifies that she is not his girlfriend, which makes our protagonist a little happy. On the other hand, Jin Hae-won musters up his courage and finally confesses his feelings to Ha-jong. In front of everyone, he declares that he loves her with all his heart, to which she simply smiles. But let's shift focus to Dae-sung, whose injuries have unfortunately worsened. The doctors tell him it's impossible for him to participate in a competition anytime soon. Desperate, our boy asks the doctor to prescribe him painkillers so he can participate in the national team selections, but the doctor ethically refuses. Changing the subject, Mr. Lee is leaving for the United States, but not before saying goodbye to the teachers and especially to Ha-jong. Meanwhile, Dae-sung and Cha Hye-on compete for our Solji's attention at the billiard hall. Unfortunately for our leading man, Dae-sung is very good at the game, so without hesitation, he takes the young woman out of there. The two of them meet up later for a chat and agree to study together for the university entrance exams, something that, of course, does not make Cha Hye-on very happy. And so the exam season arrives at school, which plants seeds of doubt among our group of friends about what they should study. Our girl, Solji, already has an option: drawing. Meanwhile, Cha Hye-on tells his mother that he would like to study medicine at the same university Solji plans to attend. Although his mother doesn't want him to, he remains firm in his decision. Elsewhere, Ha-jong visits Jin Hae-won, who hasn't attended school since his confession. However, he refuses to speak to her, which obviously angers the girl. For his part, Dae-sung is at the pool, feeling a bit depressed, when he suddenly receives a call informing him that his grandmother has disappeared. With the help of Sol-ji and Cha Hae-on, they go out to look for her. When they finally find her, she doesn't recognize him as her grandson. The sweet old lady with Alzheimer's begins to talk about Dae-sung and how he will soon become a swimming champion. These words make the young man cry. He knows how thrilled his grandmother would be to see him win, so he decides to ignore his doctor's recommendations and opts to train again. But before making this crazy decision to train again, he first meets with Sol-ji and finally confesses that he has loved her for 2 years. However, he knows she is in love with someone else, so he promises that he will stop liking her. After all those broken hearts, the university entrance exams end, and with them, a new stage in their lives begins. Sol-ji gets the highest score she's ever had in her life, but unfortunately it's not enough, and she is not accepted into the same university as Cha Hae-on, Ha-jong and Jin Hae-won. Those two, by the way, have resolved their differences and are now a couple. Our leading man tries to cheer Sol-ji up, telling her he will help her study for next year's exam, while Dae-sung encourages her not to give up during an interview he gave after a competition. Over the following days, Cha Hae-on studies tirelessly while Sol-ji works on her art late into the night. Another year passes like this, which means a new opportunity to pass the exam. Luckily, this time she manages to pass. She and her friends go out to celebrate and drink a lot of alcohol. By the time the party ends, a very drunk Sol-ji returns home with Cha Hae-on, who, taking advantage of the fact that she won't remember anything the next day, finally kisses her. Later, during a university party, Cha Hae-on calls Sol-ji "my girlfriend," which of course excites the young woman. Later, she asks him to repeat the word girlfriend, which he does without hesitation. He doesn't explain the kiss, but who cares? Sol-ji is finally over the moon. The next day, they finally have their first official date. To try and impress him, she wears a dress that exposes her shoulders, and as a sign of affection, he gives her a kiss on the cheek. Then the two go to the library, where a boy takes a photo of them and puts it on the cover of the school brochure. Seeing this, other girls begin to make fun of Sol-ji, telling her she's not good enough to be with Cha Hae-on, and who do they think they are? Changing the subject, Jin Hae-won is scheduled for emergency surgery. At first, he planned not to tell Ha-jong anything, and even breaks up with her so she won't find out. However, she discovers the whole truth and stays by his side throughout the entire process. And back to our main couple, which, to my dismay, doesn't involve Dae-sung, sorry, I'm still not over it, who begin to drift apart due to their studies and other university obligations. On one hand, Cha Hae-on is working at the hospital, and his professor recommends him for a training program in the United States. Meanwhile, Sol-ji gets an interview for an internship at a large company. A few days later, our protagonist attends the interview, but unfortunately, she doesn't get the position because she was sick. At that moment, an art professor appears and offers to find her a good job, but then he gropes her. Frightened, Sol-ji hits him on the head and runs away. To make matters worse, she finds out about Cha Hae-on's trip to the United States, so she breaks up with him that very same day. Oh no, how sad. I hope Dae-sung finds out. Anyway, a month passes like this, and although Cha Hae-on is about to leave, he tries to communicate with Sol-ji, but unfortunately she refuses to see him at all costs. He takes off the bracelet she gave him a long time ago, and once again, we make another time jump, this time of 3 years. Sol-ji now works as a digital artist, while Cha Hae-on returns to Korea. They reunite at the hospital because Sol-ji's father has been admitted. Upon seeing her, our leading man tries to speak to her, but she ignores him and leaves with Dae-sung. A few days later, the group of friends gathers at a restaurant, a perfect moment for Solji and Cha Hye-on to talk. The others leave one by one until, in the end, only the two of them are left alone. Cha Hye-on offers to take her home, gets her into his car, and drives in silence. When they arrive, he asks if she regrets her decision and if she knows why he came back. She replies that she doesn't want to know, to which he musters up his courage and kisses her. After that, the next day, Solji brings him a tray of food as a thank you for his help with her father's surgery. She takes the opportunity to talk about their breakup and his intentions of getting back together. Subsequently, the wedding of Ha-jong and Jin Hae-won takes place, and several of their high school classmates have come, including Hui-ji. She takes the time to explain to Solji what happened on the day she was going to confess to Cha Hye-on, and that he always loved her above all else. When the moment comes to toss the bouquet, Cha Hye-on catches it and gives it to his beloved, slightly annoying our poor Dae-sung who, as I said before, lied to himself and obviously has not stopped liking Solji. A few days later, Cha Hye-on meets with Jin Hae-won and asks for his help in winning back Solji's heart. This is going to be very difficult, as she suffered a lot from their separation during those 3 years. Even so, he and Ha-jong invite both of them to a small get-together. Unfortunately, Cha Hye-on gets a call from the hospital and must return immediately. Dae-sung takes this opportunity to declare his love for Solji, to which she, a little embarrassed, rejects him, as she only sees him as a friend. Oh, how unfair life is. Heartbroken, our Dae-sung goes to drink with Jin Hae-won, where he runs into Cha Hye-on. Cha Hye-on confesses that he loves Solji and that he regrets having left her for these past few years. At that moment, Dae-sung reveals that he is on a call with Solji, so she heard everything he just said. A few minutes later, the young woman arrives at the bar and stands next to Cha Hye-on. He takes the opportunity to apologize again and ask for a second chance. However, Solji tells him she needs to think about it and leaves. A few days later, Solji goes to the hospital and finds Cha Hye-on there, who proposes marriage to her right on the spot. Although she had previously said she needed to think things over, she ultimately accepts, very excited. And since Cha Hye-on is free today, they both go to Solji's house to talk for a while. For the first time in a long time, they both say, "I love you." In the days that follow, Cha Hye-on records a video talking about his relationship with Solji. For him, it all began when she first told him that she liked him. She followed him everywhere, which made him feel curious. He did things he never would have thought of doing, like going into the teacher's lounge to get her book. He confesses that even though he liked her, there was more than one occasion when everything she did annoyed him. But that changed when she was about to transfer schools. At that moment, he couldn't sleep and lived with the constant pain that he would never see her again. And so, little by little, he began to realize that she made him happy. And because of that, he took care of her more and more until the day they had their first kiss. Everything seemed to be going well until they broke up. He thought he could win her back, but he soon realized it would be difficult. His selfishness haunted him for those 3 years until he saw her again. It was then that he realized he would never meet anyone like Solji. He ends the video by saying, "Now I understand that compared to me, you are an incredible person." In this way, this beautiful story concludes, reminding us of the sweetest moments of high school.